Hello, welcome. Thanks for joining me again. Value Raters Class Act here live on YouTube every Thursday, 7 o'clock. We are here, or I'm here rather, looking ahead to Friday's action, hopefully identifying some value. But before that, as always, just one thing I need you to do for me. Yeah, it'd be great if you could just hit that thumbs up button you see here on YouTube. It's really helpful. It just shows me that you're enjoying the content, first of all, but it also notifies YouTube that, well, what we're doing is good and you want to see more of it, really. And also to subscribe, should I say, to the YouTube channel. That way, when we go live, you'll be notified. There's a little bell next to the subscribe button. If you just click on the bell, you will see all. If you just click all, and you'll get all our videos. Obviously, what we're talking about is very, well, it's time sensitive, isn't it? You know, racing. So you want to make sure that you're here live at 7 o'clock, really, ideally on a Thursday. Well, now that's out of the way, let's talk about what's ahead then. So, of course, we're really almost on the eve of Royal Ascot, but before then, we have got the weekend's race. And I always think just before a big festival, what you tend to get, even on the grade tracks, or the group tracks, should I say, that we're going to be looking at tomorrow, we're going to be looking at racing at Sandown and York. I've got one race from each of them, but I just had the feel going through there that these horses that we're going to be seeing on these tracks, they just not the very top end, because of course they'll be ready for Ascot next week. So it gives opportunities for horses that perhaps struggle a little bit on these group tracks to actually have a day in the sun. That's certainly the feel that the racing gave me anyway. So let's dive straight into it. So let's go over, and of course, as usual, I will be using GG's Gold. This is my personal choice of what I want to use when identifying winners. Anyone's interested, there is a link in the description bar. You can actually start a free, well, it's not a free trial, it's actually going to cost you £1, but you can for 30 days for £1. But if you were with me last week, then you're going to know how this kind of works. It's a great bit of kit, this. But if you're first time watching this week, well, you're about to see why I use it. So Sandown is going to be the first port of call. As always, what I like to do is just have a look at the course and remind myself. Now, last week, we were obviously looking at Epsom, which was a bit of a helter-skelter. You know, it's not so important. And, you know, if anyone tells me that you don't handle Sandown, then I'm not sure I quite believe them, really, unless, of course, the horse doesn't like a hill. Because as you can see at Sandown, beautifully laid out track. Very nice, actually. I mean, if you've never been to Sandown, I would highly recommend it. It's a beautiful setting, get some fantastic racing, but it's very stiff. The race we're actually going to be talking about, the first race, is the 355, which actually ran over mile 2. So you can see that they start actually here, all the way down, and then right-handed, which is the lowest part of the course here. And then it's really uphill, steady uphill. So you really want a horse that really stays the trip really well. Now, the first race we're looking at is a 1.25 miles, and I want to be seeing horses at least stay 1.25 miles on stiff tracks. And preferably, sometimes I do like to see, especially on these really emphasis on stamina, I sometimes like to try and find a horse that stays a little bit further, really, ideally. So that's the layout there of Sandown. Let's get into this first race. It's the 355, which is 1.25 miles. It's class 4, and it's actually for 3-year-olds. So where are we? That's today's race, and we don't want that. Sandown. Okay, 355. Lovely. Right, I hope that everyone can everyone can see that. As always, before we do that, let's just look at the ground. It's currently good to firm at Sandown, they're calling, and I think that's what we're certainly going to get. I mean, today's been, they haven't had much sunshine this morning, all afternoon, really, 24 degrees. It looks like it's set fair, doesn't it? It's going to be good to firm. It's going to be really quick ground, so there should be no changes really there in the ground. And as always, in the habit of just checking on the pace. Now, this should be lovely. Just what I like to see. You can see here where the cursor is. Should be an even pace we get here. Quite interesting up here if we look that actually there's quite leading over this distance. 18% looks quite, and it's profitable as well. So here over a mile and a quarter, which might surprise you really being such a stiff track, but yeah, certainly leading on this ground. If the ground was soft, I mean, if I change this to say good to soft, good to soft, you can see straight away, when you change the ground, you can see now that leading, it's not so good. You want to be sort of prominent. So this can change, obviously. And this is a great thing about GGs. When the ground changes, you can change up. Good. Right. So we've got even pace. The draw. Let's have a look at the draw for this race. Lots of data here. It's actually showing really low numbers. So low numbers are quite favoured here. Indeed. So I've had a good look through this race. Now, it's a 3-year-old race. Now, unlike when you're going to get a lot of horses, handicappers, older handicappers have had a lot of runs, you're going to get a lot of data, which will help you through. But with 3-year-olds, obviously they're still at the early part of their career. So a lot of them are unexposed, and you can expect them to improve quite a lot. So they're handy. Some of these handicap marks, some of them will remain on about the same, but you've just got to give a little bit more care and attention when looking at 3-year-old races, because they can improve. It's an interesting race. But if we go to Instant Expert, what we can see from the win now, it's a traffic light system. Obviously, you've got a lot of horses in here that are unproven on what is going to be good to firm ground. That's not to say they're not going to go on it, but they haven't done it at the moment. The one that has certainly is Greystoke. Mick Channon changed this one. If we just go into the recent form, last time ran at Haydock, took keen hold, held up in last. Now, I've watched this race back, and he never put it in the race, quite simply. And he only made a token effort once the leaders in front of him, the first 3, sort of kicked for home. It was, I don't know whether he thought that there was another circuit to go or what, I don't know. But it was a poor ride there. Ran at Newbury before that. A lot of money for it this day, interestingly enough, off a mark of 83. Now finds itself £5 lower. They tried leading that day. Sylvester de Souza on. Thought it was interesting that they'd obviously, this was in, don't forget, this is in Class 2 company, this race was. Real good race, that is, traditionally. All right, it was beating 21 lengths. This run at Redcar interests me. And it's an angle, really, on the ground. If we look, the last run at Haydock was on soft ground. Newbury time before, good to soft. Now, this was the first time that Greystoke had encountered good to firm ground, which are the conditions we'll be running at Sandown. It was over the same distance. Interestingly, also, the horse put up its best time speed, his best figure on this ground that day. I've watched that race. There was a lot to like it. There was a good true gallop to that race. It just sat up the back, really. And it can be probably marked up for the performance because George Bass, who's going to be riding it tomorrow, actually had to pull round horses to get a run. And I thought it did it very, very cozy myself. That was winning off a marker 74. The handicapper obviously was impressed with the performance and put the horse up £9. And then they gambled it at Newbury. Didn't work out for them in Class 2 coming in. And I say last time at Haydock, you have to watch the race back yourself, but he just never put it in the race. Because of these two runs, the horse is now only £4 higher than this run. Optimal conditions when you look at the top speed that it produced that day. Now, the form of this race, Realist, who was in second, came out this week, actually, came out at Leicester. He had excuses. They said he lost a shoe and all of this, but it was a very strong race for the grade, I thought, at Leicester the other day. I didn't think there was any disgrace. I think he was beaten 6 odd lengths in that race. Admittedly, the form in behind at Redcar is not really a lot to recommend it, but it was the visual impression over the distance. It's going to be on the ground. One thing I would say about his trainer, Mick Channon, is that, fair play to him. He likes to have a go with his horses, but I do think he's got the habit of over-phasing them, which is probably what's happened here. I think he's gone from Redcar. They've obviously tried to have a touch now when he's gone £9 up the weights in a Class 2, being ridden completely different that day. I just thought he was interesting. Definitely will go on the ground. We know he's got a bit of pace. Well, it's going to be an even pace. So it'll be there. Now, let's have a look. So he goes on the going. He's won in the class. The only other one that's won in this sort of class is Top Brass, but that hasn't gone on the, hasn't proven it yet on the ground. It's actually interesting that Greystoke ran against Top Brass at Sandown at the early part of his career. There wasn't much between them that day off level weights. And now Greystoke's in receipt of weight as well against that horse. Admittedly, that was over 7 furlongs. We are now talking about 1.25 miles. So you've got to be a little bit careful. But I still thought it was interesting on that. I just think if we flick the odds on, he was earlier on. I must admit, before I come on, I didn't. By the way, this isn't Gigi's being slow. This is just because we're live and I'm on a different tab. It's lightning quick to use. Oh, now I've turned them off. Sorry, we will get there. Whatever, he's going to be a double figure price once it loads up. Apologies for the slight delay. Oh. Apologies again. We hopefully should get, all right, here we go. Great, cool. It's bigger than I even thought. 16 to 1. 16 to 1 at the moment. I know I have checked odds checker earlier on. I know there's only 3 places for the for this race. There's lots of interesting horses in here, but as you could see from when we looked at Instant Expert, they've all got something to prove one way or another. And I've given some reason in here why, under these conditions, the horse can return to this sort of form, now back down in the weights. I just thought he was a big price. I thought he was value in here. Each way. You mean, so Mark's got one here, Secret Box. That's been in my tracker. I actually saw it through the TV at Southall. Looked a lovely horse. But you've got to prove it's going to stay. I don't know. I thought Greystoke in this race, I thought he was interesting. If we look at That's the form. Jockey form, last 14 days. The jockey, he's in good form. I think it's really important. I don't think people appreciate that the horse has got to do the running, but I think the jockey's confidence, it's a big factor which I look at. You know, if you're going well, your confidence is going to be high. I do some motor racing, and if I turn up to a meeting and I've had I remember once I turned up at Cadwell. I had a terrible time last time I was at Cadwell. I was in bad form with my driving, and it does affect you mentally. But when things are going well, you don't overthink things, and I think with jockeys, it must be the same. It's all about instinct. So I do look at this to see how they're going the last 14 days, and especially the trainer-jockey combo over 1 year. He rides for him a lot, so you would expect decent results. He's just got 10%, that's okay. Trainer form, most important, he's going okay, McKinney. 11%, last 14 days, 4 winners, 14 places. Yeah, nothing there would at all put you off. Let's go back to the draw. What did the draw tell us? Really, that you wanted to be drawn low. Well, this is where is he drawn? 5. Passable. Look, we're talking about a 16-1 shot. If we look at the speed ratings, it's actually got the highest figure here. Look, 92. And that was achieved from this red car race under what the conditions are going to be tomorrow. We know also that he will be all right on the track, because I've been back to watch the race at his early part of his career when he took on Top Brad, and he'd be fine on the track. He'd be absolutely, I think everything's right conditions wise. He's a huge price tomorrow at 16-1. It's a competitive enough a race, don't get me wrong, but there's plenty of, you just couldn't back a lot of these horses because will they go on the ground? Won't they go on the ground? I just think he's a big price there. Worth a look. I hope I've sold that enough to you anyway. Yeah. And we should get, so yeah, it should be all good for a really good run, I think, from Greystoke at 16-1. Right. What are we doing next? I have got a running order here. We've got one more race we're going to look at, which is probably my bet of the day. That's going to be at York. But as I said before that, next week, of course, Royal Ascot is going to start. And if you're not part of our free racing club, it's completely free to join over at valuerator.co.uk. Ian Heitman on Monday evening is doing a really good preview for the 2-year-olds at Royal Ascot. And before we get into the next race, just meeting.
There's nowhere that I know that's free that give you like the content I can add for Value Rater, especially on 2-year-olds. One of my favourite races ever was the 1989 Breeders' Cup Classic. It was one of the first races that I really remember, that I really got interested in. When I'm writing about 2-year-olds, it's pretty much to give an idea as to what's actually happened within the races, what I think could happen in the future, any little tidbits of stats that I could offer that may give the reader a little bit of an edge that other people, if they just buy a newspaper, for example, wouldn't be able to see in that environment, really. Well, when you first get into racing, you think, oh, I know everything about everything, but there's just so much racing that you just can't be an expert in 7 furlong handicaps, 2-mile races, 3-year-old races, 2-year-old races. So I just thought, well, this is what I like. I know a little bit about it. I'm interested in pedigrees. And that's why I thought, well, from about the end of May, I stopped looking at any 3-year-old races and just focused solely on 2-year-old races. I think most people who are interested in racing use the Racing Post website, and I don't think there's enough form content. I do think you need to have a drill down through various form lines, and the form content could be a lot better in a lot of places. I produce a lot of my own statistics, which I then would add into the content that I write for Value Rater. And I find that gives me a massive edge over a lot of people who just rely on what various publications provide. I've built hundreds of Excel spreadsheets with each individual trainer, and over the last couple of years I've merged all those spreadsheets into one massive spreadsheet with however many thousands of lines. All that effort is worthwhile in the end because, like I say, it gives you the edge over other people, really. Just about to publish a all-weather preview for the upcoming all-weather championships, and from then on I'll be doing a monthly review of the all-weather at the end of every month. The people that Matt's got on board, it gives a whole variety of views within racing. I just think it's an excellent idea, and I'm surprised that somebody hasn't done it before, to be brutally honest.
I paid him to say that. No, Ian Heitman, you have to see his articles to believe him. He's so thorough, really nice guy too, unassuming fella, and no, I love to read his stuff, and you can too. As I said, after the broadcast, there's a link in the description box as well here. Head over to the website. All we need is your email address and you'll get all the articles. Not only Ian, you've got Andy Ayres on a Tuesday with his paddock notes, Steve Jones from Racing TV Friday. You've got this all for free. What more can I say? Right, let's go and look at the next race. That at York. So we've been at Sandown, identified. That's what I was really surprised. 16-1 about that Shannon Horse. That is a big old price, that is. Tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing how that can get on. Now, York, let's quickly get into the habit of, we've got Sandown in our mind at the moment. Let's head over and at York. York's a really fair track. I don't think that you just don't get the hard luck stories at these tracks. That's what I like about it. It's lovely and galloping. The race that we're going to be talking about here is going to be the 4:35. 17 runners go to post, and they've done over 7 furlongs, which you can see on the cursor. It's here. And then it's a lovely fair track, York, but being so galloping, again, you know, you do need to stay it well, because unlike Sandown, the jockeys will go that little bit steadier when they've got a stiff finish. But also these races, when they're galloping like this, you know, they go a little bit quicker. So you still do need to stay your trips really well, which is true on any track, I know, but especially places like York, big wide open space. And we're going to look at the 7 furlong race here. Right, let's bring it up. The 4:35. Okay, the ground at York, similar, according to Good to Firm. If we look at the Met Office here, they've had, you know, temperature. Oh, sunbathers alert. Oh, sunbathers won't be happy. Doesn't look very sunny, does it? But listen, it's not going to change the ground, I don't think, at all. Even this little bit of rain they've got. Good to Firm ground again. So York where are we? 4:35. Okay. As you can see, huge field. I don't mind looking at these. I know a lot of people tend to not want to look at them, but this is where you will find the value. First of all, to say this race, even though it's a class 3, 71 to 90, and it's a big field, it's pretty weak for the grade, I feel. For one reason and another, I was really struggling. Well, you could find horses with chances, but really struggling to find horses I was willing to actually back. Let's check the pace. So we're going to get some pace on here. Probable loan speed, possible contested speed. So we've got a bit of pace on. Again, I mentioned it last week. You know, if the pace projection here would say maybe falsely run, I just wouldn't be getting involved. You do need, I'll say it again, you do need to make sure that you've got pace in the race. Let's have a look at the draw. So the draw is indicating, which we haven't got. This is obviously this 16 run is on good to firm. We haven't got, well, we've got quite a bit of data there. But this is indicating really middle. Maybe look here, 14%, 25% of place there in middle. Now, the horse I think has got outstanding claims in this horse is Daniel's Flyer here for Sir Dodd, who's got a very good record at this track. Ran here last time over course and distance. This was on good ground. Kept on well. It turned out this was good form. It was only, I mean, officially it was a class 4 race. This is obviously class 3, it's up in class, but this was only a class 4 in name. This form's worked out extremely well. The winner went on to win, I think, in class 2 company, and the horse he beat in the next race, that went on to also win next time in a much higher class. So he got very unlucky basically this day. And the handicapper, bit mean, isn't it? And he ran off 83 that day. He's put him up £2, but that might look a little bit light to how that form is actually worked out. Before that, he ran at Ayr, beaten 2 3/4 lengths when sent off 6-4 favourite there, but won the time before at Redcar. Jockey's okay. These two team up obviously quite a lot, so you would expect to see trainer form going okay. Just, I do like to see him in the last 14 days at least 10%. So the trainer is okay there. Now, when we're looking at obviously the draw, he's drawn 2, which might indicate to you, think, well, hang on, you're in one breath you're saying the draw, you need to be middle. Well, I've been back to have a look at this race at York, where he actually finished second, and he was drawn high. The horse needs to be held up. The jockey had no intention of making use of the draw when they ran in that race, and he took back to held up. So I personally think it's a better draw from him tomorrow, Brian in 2, because, you know, he's not going to want, well, I don't think he will if they're going to ride him similar to how they did last time. I don't think it's, you know, I think it'd more benefit him actually being in the 2 there. I think that's going to be fine. If you look at the instant expert, which gives us a, as you can see, there's not a, from a win purpose, we haven't got an awful lot really in the green here. By the way, all this, you can, there's brilliant GG's gold with all this data. Your first 30 days for £1 in the description box after the show. Yeah, do go and have a look at that. But back to this, Daniel's Flyer, 13 runs on the going. He at least won twice. Hasn't done it in the class. Now, when I saw this, when I did the form, I was, usually on this sort of track being York, this would be an absolutely must, that the horse must have won in the class. But as I said at the start of the show, I think this is a weak race. I think because we've got Ascot coming up, I think there's a lot of horses in here that haven't really got this sort of class to be winning this. And I think Daniel Fly's actually found a pretty weak class 3. And we know also that race last time in class 4 companies worked out very well. And that was only class 4 in name. He hasn't won on the track, but he's certainly won at the distance. If we flick this, if I flick up here to place, which tells us all the horses, how they've done. sort of place wise. You know, it looks a little bit more attractive here, but you can see Daniel's Fly, he's got plenty. Been placed plenty, well, 3 times in this company. Now, this is disappointing, what I've just spotted here. There must be a non-runner, that something must have come out since I've come. Yes, it has. That is disappointing. When I looked at this earlier on, he was looking to be over 5-1, and I thought 5 places. Some of these bookies are going, well, a lot of the bookies are going 5 places. I thought it was an absolute. That is disappointing. That we're live. I can't do anything about that. That would stop me. I must admit, at 7-2, you know, I would want to be on him each way. Maybe a drift back out. Have a look to see what the markets will be doing in the morning. Hopefully, he might drift out. But even if he become sort of a 4-1 shot, 4-1, 9-2, I still want to be backing him each way. I think he's an absolutely cracking each way bet. But I do want to be backing him each way. I tell you for why. There is another one in here that I am nervous of. It's this horse here, Northern Powerhouse, Baron Smart. Now, he definitely has got the class for this sort of race, and I'm sure that if he wanted to, he would win. I'm not sure about his attitude, though. Where's the cheap pieces? Last time when I watched him run at Doncaster, he never picked up the bridle for the first 3 furlongs. I appreciate the trip was on the short side, but even so, I've been back and watched his races, and he looks a bit iffy to me, but I am worried about him. I could see him going very well if he wanted to, but I just wouldn't trust him. That's the trouble with horses like that. That is really disappointing, because there's a lot of runners here, and I've been through the form backwards and forwards for all the horses, and I just thought this Daniel's Flyer, from an each way point of view, when the bookies out there are going 5 places, I would be extremely disappointed if he could not finish in the first 5. I think he's got a great winning chance, don't get me wrong, but price is everything. Now, this is obviously Value Raters Class Act, where we identify value. At the moment, at 7-2, I can tell you I won't be getting involved. If we can get in the morning 4-1, I'll still back him each way with that non-runner. I still think he's a bet. You know, people talk about backing horses. You know, personally, I've been known to back horses at 3-1 each way if I think that I'm going to be landing in, because you'll back enough winners to compensate for that small margin that you're going to lose if it finishes second or third. You know, I always think if you're not going to win, make sure you don't lose, or do your best to make sure you don't lose. You know, it's all about the psychology with your betting. For me, is that if you go and have a punt and the horse, you've just backed it to win and it finished second or third, you've lost, haven't you? And you go into your next bet on the back of a loser. But if you've backed it each way and it's hit the frame, your confidence is still there. And I think that is so important with your punting. I'm always forever backing horses each way. Very rare you'll see me backing horses just straight win on the nose. But I am really disappointed that we've had that non-runner. And I just hope that, you know, 7-2 looks too short for me, but 4-1, I'll get involved. I think you're going to get a massive run here from Daniel's Flyer. I think this is a really weak class 3 for the track. Here do for me. And I say the only one I would be concerned about in the back of my mind, I just thought this Northern Powerhouse could come back to some form. And as I said, the draw doesn't worry me, because before he was drawn high and he didn't want to be anywhere near the pace. And I think it'd be a similar scenario. So there, see what he's doing. I'll leave that with you. So there we are. There's a couple of horses. One of Channon's at Sandown, each way, Greystoke, 16 to 1. It's a big price for me, that. It's huge. Personally, if it had been, 12 to 1, I would want to get involved. So 16, I'm definitely back in that. I say Daniel's Flyer in this race of 4:35. By the way, this GG's links in the description. You've seen tonight what it can do. It gives you a lot of data. What I would say about GG's, anyone watching this and it decides to go over and use it as a form tool, all data is open to interpretation, really. There is an element of you need to be able to race read with the data. You can't just look at the data and say, well, that's how it's going to be. Like I've done with Daniel's Flyer. I've seen that the draw is a bit of a negative, but I've gone in and I've checked the form of its last run styles. A lot of work has to go into that. I'm not just making the case to suit myself. I've given you the reasons why. But if I hadn't have seen that and on that draw, I would trust the data and say it's got to be seen as a negative, and he wouldn't have been such a strong bet for me. But it's great stuff. Love it. This GG's goals. And over the weeks, I'll be showing you more and more of what GG's can do, because what I'm showing you at the moment is just the absolute, it's just on the surface. I mean, it can do so much more for you there. So there we are. Another week of Value Raters Class Act. We're going to be back I keep on saying we, it's me, it's I. I will be back next week at 7 o'clock next Thursday. Don't forget to join Value Rater Racing Club, Ian Heitman's 2-year-old focus, all the 2-year-old races next week at Royal Ascot. That is not to be missed. But till then, thanks for joining me. See you next week.